Welcome to an epic event. As the curtain rises over a slave girl, caught in a set of circumstances out of her control, you're going to discover how the invisible hand of God intervenes in her life, in the life of her relative, and in the life of her people to save all of them from certain doom. This is a story that will blow your mind. But it is also a story that will transform your life and give you a much bigger view of God. As we've been going through the book of Esther, we've been attacking the theology of luck. You cannot have divine providence and luck. Chance, fate, happenstance. Let's go back. Esther is a beautiful young lady. And through a series of providential events, she becomes wife of the king. Mordecai, her cousin, has set this thing in motion. But Mordecai will not bow before Haman, the second in charge. Haman decrees to kill all the Jews. And then Haman rolls the dice. And they come up 12 months from now. No, he didn't do it like that. He did. He rolls the dice and they come up 6 and 6, 12. We will kill them 12 months from now. Because you have to understand, when the devil rolls the dice, God controls what number comes up. Because there is no luck where there's providence. And so there's a 12-month gap between his declaration of death and his executing that declaration. Mordecai says to Esther, you've been called to the kingdom for such a time as this. It's not just that you're pretty. It's not just that you're in the king's palace. He allowed you to be pretty and he allowed you to be in the king's palace because he had a kingdom purpose for you to perform in this arena. Then through another series of providential events, God flips the script. And through a delay, when God stops Esther from declaring to the king what was going on with Haman, he blocks her in the middle of her sentence. He stops her because he had other things he had to arrange so that Mordecai would be elevated and Haman would be demoted and ultimately Haman killed. He even allowed the king to walk in the garden to give Haman time to be all over Esther. So the king thought Haman was assaulting his wife when he was really begging for his life, and he didn't give him a chance to explain himself and had him executed on Mordecai's gallows. Because he's he's creating a picture through the most normal of events. Through flipping the script. And so now we come to the final two chapters. The final two chapters of the book. Verse 1 of chapter 9. Now in the 12th month, that is the month of Adar, when the king's command and edict were about to be executed on the day. Somebody say on the day. On the day when the enemies of the Jews hoped to gain the mastery over them, it was turned to the contrary, so that the Jews themselves gained the mastery over those who hated them. Just in case you didn't know it, all of us have a day. Oh, you don't believe me? All you got to do is read Ephesians chapter 6, verses 10 to 18. He calls it the evil day. That's the day the devil has determined to do you in. That's the day the devil has determined to destroy your life. That's the day when the devil, through the Hamans that he brings into our experience, wants to ruin your future. That's the day. On that day. Well, wait a minute. This day is 12 months later, but you have to understand, God's been setting it up for a year. It didn't come and fully reveal itself till the day. Because God is always moving over a period of time to bring his conclusion about at the right time. And so God allows evil to develop. He allows evil to perpetuate itself. He allows evil to replicate itself in order to situate evil in the right place so that while he's delivering you, he's handling them. And he's doing that so that this day becomes a bigger day than the original day when it started. Because on the original day, 12 months earlier, all he had was a plan. By the time we get to this day, Haman is dead, and God is getting ready to wipe out everybody who was against the Jews, because God always has a bigger plan than you are aware of. You just haven't gotten to the day yet to see it worked out. God is so precise in his movements in our lives as we are living under his rule, that he, watch this, he will make things worse in order to make them better. See, you got to watch this. God is so precise that in order to accomplish what he's seeking to accomplish in our lives as we align ourselves under him, he will actually make things worse before he makes things better. So if you now understand the bigness of providence and you're walking in alignment with God and things go worse, don't just react to what you see. React to the one who let it happen. So that God is accomplishing something bigger than what you're seeing in your circumstance at the moment on this day. Now we're told in verse 4 that Mordecai had become great in the king's house. His fame spread throughout all the provinces, for the man Mordecai became great, greater and greater. Mordecai has gotten promoted through a series of events that had nothing to do with him. I mean, it had something to do with him because he predicted the king's assassination plot, but because of what Haman did, he got promoted. So I need to make a parenthesis here, because far too many Christians climb the secular ladder of success and don't make a kingdom connection to their reason for being there. All they see is more money, more prestige, and more power. They do not connect the fact that God allowed me to get to this place because he wants to use me at a higher level. He doesn't mind you being blessed as long as you understand there is a kingdom reason why God has allowed you to get that promotion, get that degree, get that opportunity, have those resources. It's not just for your car, just for your house, just for your clothes, and just for your notoriety. And so you must ask the question every time God comes through for you and takes you from where you were and moves you to another level, what was your kingdom reason for me being here? What spiritual influence do you want me to wield with the opportunity that you've given me? Do you know what the Christian community can do and what the kingdom of God could do if all Christians became kingdomized? That they understood that there was a supernatural purpose for my presence in this situation. And so here we are. Mordecai is in this situation. On the day, on this day now, it's time for them to get involved in the will of God. Because we're told in verse 6, at the citadel in Susa, the Jews killed and destroyed 500 men. On top of that, we learn in verse 10, this included the 10 sons of Haman. Okay? The decree was, if anybody comes at you Jews, based on the decree of Haman, you're able to get them back. Let me explain. God's will calls for your involvement. You do not sit on the side. This is spiritual warfare. And spiritual warfare means you must be involved. You don't sit back and say, oh, God's going to do it, when God has given you weapons to use to do it with. That's again why Ephesians 6 verses 10 to 18, it talks about the armor of God. 1 Corinthians chapter 10 talks about the weapons of our warfare, that you are called into spiritual battle. You can't pray for a job and not go job hunting. talking about God gonna do it. Okay? You cannot not do what God has placed in your hand to do, to be workers together with him. You must apply the spiritual to the situational, and God's purposes and power works through our obedience using whatever legitimate resources God has provided us, because God wants us involved in the battle. Just like she had to use her clout for the king, Mordecai has to use his clout with the king. There will be circumstances that call for your action. One of the great principles in the book of Esther is God's timing. It's called in the New Testament Kairos. It's the opportune time. It's the time when God creates intersections and suddenly breaks through with his divine presence, his divine provision, and his awesome divine power. Many times between Kairos, that sudden breakthrough of God, are gaps where nothing seems to be happening, where the ordinary is taking place until the extraordinary comes to pass. In the book of Esther, that's what happened. It was a period of time before her beauty was recognized under a certain set of circumstances that brought her into the king's palace and turned her into being the king's wife for such a time as this. When God's people were under attack, God had his lady in the right place at the right time for the right kingdom purpose. And when it had to be revealed, timing mattered. It was the timing between two banquets that would create the scenarios that God would use to expose Haman and to bring about the deliverance of God's people. You see, God is always doing something bigger than you can see at any given moment. And that's why when nothing is happening, you have to understand something is happening. It just hasn't hit that Kairos intersection yet. And that's what Kairos is all about. It's about intersections. When Saul became king, that was another Kairos moment. You see, Saul was chasing donkeys. All he knew was that his father's donkeys had gotten away and he was supposed to go after them. Little did he know he was going to run into a Kairos moment and his life would forever change. Because once his servant told him, don't quit, but keep going, he intersected with the prophet Samuel, who had already been notified by God that there's going to be a young man coming your way. And when you cross sections with him, that is the man who I want to make king of my people. So you never know what God has in mind. You keep chasing those donkeys. In other words, you keep doing what you're supposed to do, and you leave the moments to God, because he knows when he needs to make those intersections happen in your life and create for you a Kairos moment. The king says the Jews have killed 500 guys, including the 10 sons of Haman, verse 12. And what else you want? He said, what else you want to do? Wouldn't you ladies love to be married to somebody and say, honey, I'll do whatever, baby, anything. What else? I done killed 510 folk for you. What else you want? Esther says, watch this now, if it pleases the king, let tomorrow also be granted to the Jews who are in Susa to do according to the edict of today. And let Haman's 10 sons be hanged on the gallows. You know what makes Esther so special and significant? She didn't want to get rid of some of the sin. She wanted to get rid of all of it. Give me more time so that we never have to deal with this mess again. And then take the 10 sons of Haman, and I want you to put them on the gallows. The 10 sons have already been killed. But I want you to put them on the gallows so that whenever anybody, it's called running up the score in football. In football, when you want to run up the score on somebody, you already won the game. There's a minute left in the game, and you're still scoring touchdowns, and you're ahead by 25 points already. That's called running up the score. And you know what you run up the score, you showing off then. When you're running off the score, you letting them know you don't want to play with this. You don't want none of this. Because if you come at me again, I'm going to give you some more of this. It's called running up the score. It's making a big deal of who you were in order to make a point. Well, God used Esther to make a point. Point number one. Don't get rid of part of the sin you're dealing with. Get rid of all of the sin you're dealing with so that cancer of sin won't come back at you later on. Remember, the only reason that they're having to deal with the enemy is because of Haman. Haman, he was from Agag. Agag was the king that Saul refused to kill. So when Saul refused to kill him, he had other lineage that came forward. So by the time you get to the book of Esther, there are thousands of people against the Jews because Saul didn't deal with it like God said deal with it years ago. Because if he would have dealt with it when God said deal with it, there wouldn't have been a Haman who was tied to Agag who would have put you in this problem to start with. That's why we're having issues in our country today, because sins that didn't get dealt with years ago keep coming up, because we don't cut the sin short. We've got to do that in our personal lives. We've got to say, I'm going to not only deal with a piece of the sin, because if you cut out summer cancer, whatever you leave behind is going to manifest itself one more time at the right season. So he says, cut the whole sin. This woman says, I want to get rid of this so my children, my grandchildren, and my great-grandchildren never have to face this mess again. And I want them to see what happens when God deals with evil by putting those 10 boys up there, because I want them to see that God will even destroy your lineage if your lineage is carrying on your evil. So this is a message for parents. If parents don't invest spiritually in their children, then what you're doing is perpetuating a generational evil and that's what we're seeing out here in a lot of the welfare. You're seeing generational both oppression and generational irresponsibility. You're seeing it over and over and over again because people don't want to call it evil. They want to deal with it sympathetically, or they want to ignore it. They don't want to call it sin for what it is, cut the whole thing off so it keeps going generation after generation after generation. Esther, the book is named for Esther because she wanted to solve it once and for all. She wanted to get rid of all the evil, and she wanted to show what evil can do because it passes down to our children, to our youth, and to generations. So this woman takes the stand to deal with evil completely. They have now destroyed the enemies. See, when you hear God in the Bible destroying whole groups of people, it doesn't feel right, and it doesn't look right, it doesn't read right. But when God does that, he's doing that to keep greater evil for showing up later. Mordecai records the events. He sends letters to the Jews throughout the provinces. Oh, and now Kool in the gang. It's time to party. Celebration time is here. Because verse 22, they enter into a day of feasting and rejoicing and sending portions of food to one another and giving gifts to the poor. Oh, it's a time of celebration because it's a time of deliverance. Look, when God's day becomes your day, you're going to praise him at another level. God will let things go downhill, let evil seem like it's achieving something, so that when he gets to that day, he know he's going to get some praise out of you. He know he's going to get some glory out of you. He's not going to get that trite stuff we just throw at him because we're supposed to do it. He's going to get some heartfelt celebration because of what he's done and how he did it and how he defeated our enemies by reversing something, how he blew our minds. And so they killed all of these people and they were set free. And so we come now to an official celebration. I love this. This official celebration that they had because of this deliverance that God brought them through. Verse 26. Therefore they call these days Purim, after the name Pur, And because of the instructions in the letter, both what they had seen in this regard and what had happened to them. This is sweet. He says, this celebration that they're having, they said, we're going to call this Purim. Well, remember the word pur, P-U-R, was the word Haman used for throwing the dice. In chapter 3, verse 7, he called it the pur, or the dice, the lots. So he threw the dice, it came up 12 months. The Jews said, oh, well, guess what? We're going to have a celebration, and we're going to celebrate it every year. And we're going to call it Purim. Verse 27, the Jews established and made a custom for themselves, for their descendants, and for all those who allied themselves with them, so that they would not fail to celebrate these 2 days according to their regulation and according to their appointed time annually. You know what they did? They answered the definition of this book. See, pur, P-U-R, was luck. It was to roll the dice and throw it down. They said, oh, I got your luck. We're going to call it Purim because we're going to celebrate God is the God of what people call luck. And every time we get it together, we're going to celebrate ain't no luck, just God. And the providence of God. This celebration was to remind themselves that God was a providential God. The subject of the book of Esther is the providence of God intervening on behalf of the people of God against the evil that is against the people of God in order to accomplish his kingdom program. This book of Esther is about the providence of God that looks like luck, chance, fate, and happenstance. It's the providence of God on behalf of the people of God against the evil one, Satan, and his minions against the people of God in order to demonstrate for the glory of God the advancement of the kingdom of God. And they said every year we're going to do it for ourselves, watch this, and our descendants. So parents, you ought to be telling your kids the story. You ought to let them hear the story about how God came through. A lot of you were here for Super Bowl 51. In Super Bowl 51 in the third quarter, the New England Patriots were losing by 25 points. They were celebrating in Houston, and if you were an Atlanta fan, you were celebrating in Atlanta because it was all but over. How are you going to get back in the third quarter? You don't have enough time to overcome 25 points. But a couple of things happened. The Patriots got better, and Atlanta made some mistakes. Instead of running the clock out, they made calls that kept the clock on the side of the New England Patriots. And slowly, over the rest of a quarter and a half, New England climbed back, and they climbed back, and they climbed back until you come to the end of the game. You at the end of the game, and we got a tie ball game. Oh, but then there was the coin toss. And the ref tossed the coin, and when it hit and said the New England Patriots won the toss, I said, it's a wrap. And the reason I said it's a wrap is because I knew who the quarterback was. See, because the quarterback was Tom Brady, I had no doubt that he would be able to not only overcome 25 points, but in overtime to secure the victory. I don't know how long the devil been beating you. I don't know how far behind you are and you feel like a loser. A loser in your life, a loser in your home, a loser in your circumstance, a loser in your finance, a loser in your future. I know the score may be against you, but I know a quarterback. I know somebody who knows how to take the ball, who knows how to call a play, and who knows how to throw it and score a touchdown with his ability. I know a quarterback who can turn losers into winners. I know a quarterback who can turn defeat into victory. I know if you just let him have your life, he can throw a touchdown with your existence. So give God the ball of your life and let him score a touchdown with his providential care. time is in God's hands. You see, God exists from eternity to eternity. And therefore, time is not an issue for him. Now, I know it is for us because we're linear and limited in our time, but he is not. And so, therefore, he can arrange time to accomplish an eternal plan and still operate within our time frame. One day with the Lord is as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is as one day. So, since God is not in a hurry, and we are, we need to be willing to adjust our limited timetable to his unlimited timelessness. Because God seems to be slow sometimes when we are rushed. Pause. Selah. Take a moment and take a deep breath and say, okay, God, my time is in your hands. I have shall we call it a date with your destiny. I want to position myself so that when your timetable and your clock rings out for your purpose for my life, I have positioned myself to realize it and won't have any unnecessary delays because I know you got time to wait. And since I don't want to waste any of my limited time, but I want to accomplish all that you have from your unlimited
little thing related to you make me smile. I know you are doing hard work to make things possible. I want to let you know that I am with you, and I will be forever. Every little thing related to you make me smile. I know you are doing hard work to make things possible. I want to let you know that I am with you, and I will be forever. When you talk, I want to listen to you for hours. When you are there beside me, I feel like looking at you all the time. My love for you will never really change. Just want to tell you that you mean a lot to me. Every little thing related to you make me smile. I know you are the